use this formula when you are trying to work out sound quality of a song. So you've got the sample rate, which is the number of times sound is sampled per second. So just to remind you, that was literally where we had the graph. We then had the song, and then we had our sample, which is going to be converted from analog to digital. So it's the amount of times sound is sampled per second. We then got our bit depth. So it's the amount of bits to store each sound sample. So you should know what a bit is, you should know what a byte is by now. So it's the amount of bits to store each sound sample. If you multiply those two factors together, so that times that, that'll give you the bit rate. So if you're ever asked to find out the bit rate, it's the sample rate times the bit depth. And the bit rate is the amount of bits used to store each sound per second. Now let me give you an example. For 1 minute stereo sound sample using 2 channels sampled at 4100 samples per second with a bit depth of 8 bits. So from this question, we've got our 4100 for our sample. We've got our 8 bits. But we've also got a time period here of 1 minute, which we don't need right now. And we've also got something called 2 channels. 2 channels is simple. Let's imagine that you are, so let's just draw a person with headphones in this ear. Headphones. Now, sometimes you hear music on your left ear than your right ear because it's using 2 channels. I need to get a new pen. Anyway, so it's using 2 channels. So when we listen to music in headphones, it's using 2 channels. Sometimes you can hear it in your right ear, sometimes you can hear it in your left ear. It's done on purpose. Sometimes we use surround sound, which is using, in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different channels. In this question, what we're answering is asking for 2 channels, which we're going to look at in a second. So let's see the formula. To work out the bits per second, it's 2, which is the amount of channels we have. So every time your starting point should be always using the amount of channels. If it doesn't say the amount of channels, presume it's 1. But in this case, it's 2 times the sample rate, which is the 44100, which is what we've got here, times the depth, which is 8. That should give you, calculate it now, that should give you this answer. But we're not done there. We want to work out what it is for 1 minute, which is simple. We multiply the answer we just got by 60 for 1 minute. If it's for an hour, it'll be 120. For 3 hours, 180. But in this case, it's 60. It says it clearly in the question. So step 1, you get the amount of channels, you times it by the sample rate times by the bit depth. The answer is then you multiply it by the time. There we go. That's the amount of bits. The final bit is we're going to divide the answer by 8 to put it into a byte. So to put it into a byte, divide the answer by 8, which gives us that amount of bytes. Finally, let's imagine that it's asked us to turn it from bytes to megabytes. We divide it by that number there, which will give us 5.3 megabytes. So what would happen if it was a depth of 4 bits? What would you have to change? Have a look at the question. What would you have to change if it's 4 bits? If you said that we had to change this 8 to 4, correct. We still keep this 8 here because we want to turn it into a byte. This is converting it into a byte, which we do at the end. What happens if the question said we're using 5 channels? What would you have to change? Correct. That number there. What happens if the question says that we want to convert it from bytes to terabytes? Obviously, we're not going to divide it by that number there. So I want you to work that out. So the question I want to give you now is do it with the same problem. So let me just get rid of all the ink. So take the same problem, but instead of converting it to megabytes, I want you to convert it to terabytes. For a 5-channel sound.